You have to kind of go to the philosophy of what money is.
You're totally right.
Well, I should probably prepare another place to go to.
That scared me. I didn't know that there was rug pull.
And they all hate Bitcoin because of that.
We're in a world of hurt. Talkify is the country's #1 modern matchmaking service that is designed to help you achieve relationship success. And right now, Talkify is offering our listeners a 20% discount when you become a client of Talkify.com/successfactor, which is TAWKIFY.com/successfactor. Hello, friends. Thanks for tuning in to another episode on the Success Factor. I'm the host, Trent Christensen. I had the opportunity to interview Aleks Svetski and Mark Moss. They are both the co-authors of the book titled The Uncommunist Manifesto. It was a really cool conversation with these two. Mark and Alexander and I discussed cryptocurrency. We talked about what's happening right now in the world affairs, geoeconomic politics, what's happening in society, how government is playing a role in that, and what we can do to prepare for that, and the direction of currency, where that's going, and how we could potentially today do something to be able to capitalize, but at least preserve your investments, your assets. It was a great episode. Aleks Svetski has been involved with cryptocurrency a long time. He's got some pretty cool projects going on, leveraging some of that tech as well. Mark is a very powerful individual. He's got a great show and platform in LA, huge following. So it was an honor to have him on. It was actually really insightful and powerful for me to be able to figure out exactly what they got going on and how I can position myself for the future. I appreciate your support. And if you want to help us and attract greater and more powerful guests, please consider being a Patreon subscriber and supporter to this show, and share it with your friends and your family. That's the best gift that you could do for me, for this show, and for yourself as we continue to refine this content. Thank you very much for your support on the Success Factor, and have a great one, everyone. Hey, Mark, Aleks, thanks for joining me on the Success Factor. It's good to have you guys here.
Yeah, thanks, Trent. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, thank you. It's actually pretty cool to have you both here. You're both co-authors of the Uncommunist Manifesto. So it's cool to have you here, and I would love to talk about that book and also see what you guys are doing today. Mark, can you just introduce yourself? Give us a little bit of a rundown about yourself, just a bio. And same with you, Aleks.
Yeah, sure. So, Mark Moss. I like to talk a lot. I'll just say that. I have a nationally syndicated radio show on the iHeartRadio network here in the United States. I have 2 different YouTube channels, just Mark Moss and Market Disruptors on YouTube. And a podcast as well. It's called The Mark Moss Show. And I mainly like to talk about macroeconomics, geopolitics, Bitcoin, and freedom. And so, I'm just fascinated by what's going on in the world, and how we can take that information, interpret it into second, third, fourth, fifth order thinking, and try to anticipate where things are going. As an investor, I've basically been started my career at 18 years old, investing into real estate. So I've been as an investor. And so trying to kind of understand the world, make sense of what's going on, trying to anticipate what's going to happen to change in the world, both for my investments now, mostly to protect my sovereignty and my freedom for myself and my family. And so that's it. So you find me talking, like I said, online all the time, on stages near you, frequently on shows like Fox Business and Stansberry and Kitco and things like that. Wrote this book with Aleks on the Uncommunist Manifesto. Again, just kind of trying to bang the drums. I like to say on my videos, I typically say changing the way you think about money, because almost everything you've learned is wrong. And so just kind of the book is that everything that you think you know about politics and the way the world works is probably wrong. Most people think they understand Marxism or socialism, and they're wrong. And so we just thought, let's highlight this. Let's kind of propose a better way to think about it, a better way that the world could work. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Awesome. I have so many questions for you. We're going to jump into that in a minute, but Aleks, why don't you introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, my background's been entrepreneurial basically all of my life. I was really strong academically, and I was like in the top 1 percentile for math and physics and all sorts of stuff like that when I was young. I got into university with some scholarships, and then I dropped out, took my scholarship money and put it on the stock market. Made a small fortune, then lost everything, and realized that there was something wrong with the financial system. This was sort of back in 2008, 2009. And that sort of put my life on a bit of an entrepreneurial sort of journey, but also at the same time got me digging into like gold, silver, hard money, etc. In the kind of around 2010, 2011, I became a hard money advocate. Ignored Bitcoin, obviously, just I was young, stupid, didn't really understand it. Wasn't really involved in tech at the time. And yeah, my life just took on a whole series of different twists and turns, entrepreneurially speaking. And it wasn't until 2016 that I really rediscovered Bitcoin again, went down the rabbit hole, built a business, built one of the first Bitcoin only dollar cost averaging apps. And yeah, in that process, like similar to Mark, is like when you find Bitcoin, then you end up having a lot to say. And I became relatively well known in the Bitcoin space just through my essays and writing. There's a little publication I run called the Bitcoin Times, which is, I believe, how Mark and I initially connected. And yeah, we sort of developed a friendship out of that. And when we were together in El Salvador in 2021, Mark brought up the Communist Manifesto and, mentioned how bad it was. And like I had at the time, I was like, I'm sure it is. I hadn't read it. And yeah, 6 months after that, I hit him up and I was like, hey, we should write that book that counters the Communist Manifesto. And it was beautiful how it happened, because I don't think either of us really had an idea of what we were going to write. I think we sort of had this like vague semblance of is it going to be a rebuttal? Is it going to be something else? What it is? And it just sort of, beautifully like what we discussed in the book about like emergent phenomena in markets and all this sort of stuff. Like the book just emerged. And, people sometimes ask me, they're like, how much time did you put into it? How much research? And I kind of say, look, 35 years, because I think Mark and I didn't really, other than probably rereading the Communist Manifesto, individually beforehand, I don't think we did any specific research for the book. Like it was just the culmination of everything that we've learned. And we just tried to distill a series of complex ideas into something short and readable under 100 pages. And not to blow smoke up our ass, but I think we did a good job.
I would say guys did a great job. I mean, 256 ratings on Amazon for the book. It's above 4.5 stars. That's actually a pretty incredible for both. I mean, yours is fairly new. It came out last year, right? So,
and the ones that didn't like it are socialists. So
that's right. That's right.
Yeah, well, there's actually 2 1-star reviews. One of them is just an idiot troll. He says, the Communist Manifesto killed millions of people. And it's like, obviously, so we read the book against it. So, it was like, we didn't even read the book. It's like, that was one of the trolls. And the other troll was some other idiot, I think yelling at me or Mark or something like that about how like, he lost money on a trade, which he must have got scammed by some bot or something like that. So anyway, they're like the only 2 1-star reviews that I've seen. So anyway, this is like this.
Yeah, I would say
that one about communism was just funny. I was reading it. I was trying to get my head around. I'm like, is this right? What's going on here? I'm like, this idiot hasn't even read the book.
Yeah, he clearly has it, let alone the title of the book. He just put a review out there. I mean, it's pretty obvious you're against the Communist Manifesto.
Yeah.
So I don't get that. Some people just do that. They just go out and they just want to hate. They just want to go out and put out negativity, and they're trolls. That's all they are. They're keyboard trolls.
For sure.
How many copies have you guys sold in total with this book?
I think was it somewhere around 20,000 maybe, or
somewhere
close to
between 15 to
30,000?
20, I think. I think somewhere between 15 and 20. Yeah. So like we did a pre-sale on Kickstarter where we sold a bunch. We sold a bunch like in person at conferences. We underestimated how annoying it is to sit down at a bookstore and sign book. We kind of went to this Bitcoin conference where there was going to be 30,000 people. So we printed a couple thousand books and we're like, holy shit, you can only like really sign a couple books a minute. That's like, what are we going to do with all these books? We've started to put them in 5 and 10 packs.
Yeah.
Classic, like, newbie authors. But yeah, and I think we've done a good, like well over 10K on Amazon. So yeah, it's doing well. I mean, it's not like a stellar, it's not a Jordan Peterson, 500,000 books, but it's good for a self-published book, I think.
That's absolutely phenomenal, actually, for a first book. I mean, that's incredible. Most people that do a first book, I mean, you're lucky to get, 20 reviews within like a year on Amazon. So you guys are killing it. So my question for you guys is like, now that you have written the book and you're moving on to other things, you're working on, Mark, your platform, Aleks, I know you got some stuff going on with different business ventures. But thinking about the world, thinking about the politics, thinking about, the latest shooting and thinking about what's happening with the Biden administration, how true is this Communist Manifesto playing out right now in your guys' eyes?
Mark, will you take it?
You know, it's like, the teaching of Marx as it was originally taught, obviously in the Communist Manifesto, seems to have kind of gone underground, which is sort of why we wanted to kind of shine the light on it and bring it back. I think you see the teachings and you see the teachings of Marx shining through in every area of culture today. One thing that we like to point attention to is in the Communist Manifesto, he gave 10 points that a nation would have to become communist. And so I think that gives us a quantitative measurement. And so if you take those 10 things and you compare it to, the land of the free, like the United States, it looks like the United States is actually a communist country, mostly, right? Quantitatively. But you see it everywhere. So you mentioned, the shooting happening, right? And so some of the things that Karl Marx wanted to do was break down the family unit. That was one thing that he taught. And so you can see that there's an intentional destruction of the family unit happening all throughout the United States. Whether that be through abortions or unwed mothers, paying teenage girls to have babies out of wedlock, or, through this trans movement that's happening and child transitioning and things like that, which is, kind of what seems to have led to this shooting. And so we can see that there's this intentional destruction of the family unit everywhere, which those ideas stem from this book. And I think it's pretty evident at this point now where you can see the damage that's been done by these ideas and these ideologies that have been put forth. So I think it's more prevalent than it ever has been at any time. I recently just read this book called The Revolt of the Public, and I interviewed the author for that book as well. And he talks about how the rise of the internet was so powerful once we have the information that the type of government we have today isn't compatible with this new age that we're in. And he goes to highlight how, the rise of information, like in the Protestant Reformation, having a printing press upended government. And he goes on to talk about how the rise of the internet led to kind of this whole Arab Spring throughout Egypt and Syria and Tunisia, and even Occupy Wall Street. But when I was reading that and I was reading all these accounts, so when he talked about how it actually was one of the things that led to the fall of the USSR, and that's when communism fell, which was obviously spurred by the teachings of Marx. But when I go through the accounts, as he outlines all these accounts of all these revolts that happened because of the information that we have, and even the ones that we still have today, look at the people rioting in France right now today, thousands of fires being lit all across France. We see Pakistan, their massive protests happening there. And when you look at the demand of all of these protests that happened in 2011, Occupy Wall Street, and even today, what the people are actually all demanding is more socialism. What they're all mad about is, and they don't understand this. They don't understand, and we try to highlight in the book, what they don't understand is the reason why they're all mad. I think it equates down to one thing, which is the quality of their life. Their quality of life has declined so bad they can't afford to feed their family. And in the case of the Israel protest, a girl posted on Facebook she couldn't afford her apartment anymore. They can't afford their apartment. They can't afford to feed their kid, like in Egypt. And so all of that leads to a revolt. When my quality of life falls down in France, they're rioting because they changed the retirement age from 62 to 64. But at the same time, it's the quality of their life going down. And what they ask for the government is more government intervention. So we want you to return a living wage to us. We want you to take care of our retirement more. We want you to fix this income inequality gap. We want you to feed the people. Right? And it's like asking for more government. So that, I think that just the point that I'm trying to make there is it just shows how pervasive these ideas still are. So even at a time when it looks like communism has fallen and we look at the CCP as this old antiquated model, nobody wants communism. But the reality is everybody around the world seems to be actually asking for more Marxist ideas.
Man, so true. I see it everywhere. It's a very good point. But what is the alternative? What's the solution? Because I get that people are having a knee-jerk reaction to their discomfort. I feel it too with inflation. I mean, employers are not keeping up, with inflation in terms of compensation or salaries. They're not mirroring that. And so when you go to the grocery store, you go and get gas or whatever, and everything's going up in price, but your paycheck's not. The squeeze happens. And if you have a low buffer to begin with, you're going to hit red. And it's going to freak you out, and you may not make ends meet. So what do people do?
I want to let Aleks jump in on this, but I do want to just make this point before I hand it over to him, because in the Communist Manifesto, point number 5 was having a central bank. The central bank controls all the means of credit. So basically, they set the price of money. Now, most people with half a brain realize that price fixing doesn't work. If I tell you that you can't sell bread for more than $1, but the cost of producing bread goes over $1, what do? You stop producing bread. Obviously, we know that. But when the Fed, the central bank, which is communist, when the central bank sets the price, the interest rate, that's the price of money, by setting the price of money, they set the price of everything. And so they are the ones causing the shortages. They are the ones causing the prices to go high. So back to the point, and they said, Fed Chair Jerome Powell is on the table pounding. He was questioned by Elizabeth Warren last week, Senator Kennedy from Kentucky. And they said, so what you're saying, Powell, is you want unemployment to go up from 3.5% to 5%. That's 2 million people will lose their job. So the point that you're making, that your wages haven't kept up, they don't want your wages to go up. Your wages going up is a problem for them because that leads to inflation. So what is the solution? It's pretty simple. You get rid of communism, which number 5 is a central bank, which sets the price of money. Going back to what I think is the spark is when the quality of your life comes down, when you can't put gas in your car, when you can't feed your family, when you can't retire. Why can't we do those things? Because of the central bank manipulating the supply of money and the price of money, and of communism. But I'll let Aleks take it from there.
I don't know if I can add anything to that. I mean, it's literally like, it's unfortunate that people's vitriol always gets pointed, at least the mobs always point their vitriol in the wrong direction, so sort of to Mark's point earlier is, a lot of these uprisings that people talk about as a moment of awakening, very often, sparked actually by the enemy, that they spark it for a particular reason, just to get people into another hysteria. But as Mark also said, it's, a lot of the people who were there yelling, kicking and screaming are actually compounding the problem, making it worse, because they're asking for more of the same, as if as if like the government is a pack of aliens with one of those Star Trek machines that they can push a button and just create a bunch of abundance for everybody. It's not how it works. Like, the government is the one institution that literally exists from, the delta that is made from stealing from one group of people and distributing it to the other. Like, the government exists on the delta between that. So like, let's just do an experiment here. Let's say I'm the government, Trent, you're the poor person, and Mark is the productive guy. So, I'll come to you and I'll say, hey, get you and your 5 friends, give me a vote, and I'll pay you 20 cents. And I go to Mark and I'll say, hey, look, Mark, you got $2. If you give me $1, I'll protect you from these 5 guys. Otherwise, they're going to come and kill you. So I'll take Mark's $1, and I'll come back to you guys and say, look, I can only give you guys 15 cents each. You guys will take it because it's free money. I'll keep the 25 cents. I just made money for nothing. And, I keep pitting you two against each other. And that's essentially, politics, government in a nutshell, is this sort of racketeering service. And, they don't actually produce anything. Like, a government doesn't actually produce or create anything fundamentally. So when people go out there and ask for, the government has to give us this, the government has to give us that, the question they're not actually asking beneath that is, who does the government actually have to take it from in order to deliver that? And when you kind of add a central bank into the mix, the whole situation gets a little bit more, how can I put it, effed up, because like, let's say you're playing a game and like, let's say it's Monopoly, right? you've got the guy who's close to the banking till. He just keep pulling money out of the till, and basically nobody on the board can beat him. So what happens to the other players in the game? Either they quit because they're like, well, fuck this shit. It's a rigged game, so I'm not going to play. So if you look at that on the macro scale in real life, people just opt out. They're like, fuck it. I'll just burn shit. I'll just, go and steal stuff. I'm just like, I'll go take drugs. I just opt out, right? The other ones who are more competitive or more industrious or more, willing, like more cunning, let's say that, they'll say, well, shit, the aim of the game here is not to actually play fair and play a good game. The aim of the game is to actually make friends with the dude who's got his finger on the money printer, who can just pull money out for no reason. And that's essentially what you have with big corporations, right? So big corporations, because of the existence of a government and because of the existence of a central bank, instead of producing better goods, better services, better products, etc., they don't care about that anymore. They just go to the source and they get the money. So you get this real distortion in civilization. You get a bunch of people opting out. You get the cunning ones cheat. And then there's this smaller and smaller and smaller sliver of people in the middle holding it all together. And at some point that snaps and, you get a real problem. And, I'd say that we're not there yet. We're seeing sort of semblances of that. But anyway, I've gone off on a tangent there, but that's sort of, my take on, this sort of shit show, basically.
Yeah, you guys are both spot on. I mean, I totally agree with you guys. It is something that is out of control. When the government spends, $16,000 a year per citizen in our country, or about, math is foggy, but last time I spoke to you, Alex, I did some number crunching because you sparked my curiosity, but it's like $40,000 or $50,000 per working individual in our country. When you have to put forth that annually per person, it's extremely massive. And now we have a private enterprise, a private company called the Federal Reserve. It's not government. It's a private institution outsourcing and making all the decisions for our monetary policies. We're in a world of hurt. I mean, there's no easy way out of this. Our debt is way too big. So I like the crypto plug-in here because I think that is actually something that most people around the world can really leverage for their benefit, to be able to just interact with commerce, interact with investments, interact with paying and bartering through a non-centralized, non-controlled and regulated financial instrument. But I did watch the Trafficked episode about crypto with, what's her name? Mariana Van Zeller or something. I think that's her name. Holy shit. That scared me because I didn't know that there was rug pulls and I didn't know there was rampant fraud. What have you guys seen? Do you think cryptos is a good solution to all of this? Or do you think, because I don't see the Federal Reserve going away. I don't see the government shrinking anytime soon, but us individuals need to do something differently and help us get the tools to be able to go and look out for our best interests in our future.
Well, we'd like to, I think Alex and I and most people kind of in our space love to say Bitcoin, not crypto. And so what do we mean by that? Well, cryptocurrency is a very broad term. And so typically when we talk about Bitcoin as a separate asset as opposed to cryptocurrency as a whole. So what I would say is I would agree with you on your classification that crypto is mostly a rug pull and it's super dangerous. Bitcoin is different. The main thing that makes it different is Bitcoin is the invention. Bitcoin was the technological revolution. It was the breakthrough. It is a decentralized technology that nobody owns or controls. There's nobody that has the ability to rug pull you. It's a commodity, right? A commodity has no central issuer. How could oil, can oil rug pull you? Can gold rug pull you? How would oil rug pull you? Does someone own oil? Is someone can just suck all the oil out of the ground? Like, it doesn't work that way. And so nobody has the ability to rug pull you with Bitcoin. Now, cryptocurrency is different. Crypto, Ethereum, Cardano, et cetera, have a central issuer. There was a company with a group of people, and they claim it the DAO or whatever they want to claim it, but it's still a central group of people that created a token and issued it. And at the end of the day, they have control over that. So the number two cryptocurrency, Ethereum, Vitalik Buterin and Joseph Lubin and boys have changed the monetary issuance of the code multiple times. I believe 3 times in like the last 2 years. They can rug the number 2 cryptocurrency. They can just change it whenever they want and rug pull you. So that's the big difference. That's why we'd say crypto, not Bitcoin. Yes, crypto as a category is scary and can be rug pulled. Bitcoin cannot.
Yeah. To add to that, I just want to, I really want to make this clear is if we think about what these problems are that we discussed earlier. So the fact that you have a player in the game that is able to issue money out of thin air, right? And while everybody else in the game has to trade scarce time, resources, and energy for the money, right? So if you think of like civilization, economics, it's a game and we're all involved in that game. In order to play the game, the skin in the game that you're using is your resources, your time, and your energy, right? And money, like the scoreboard in some sense, is measured by, who gets what money. And if you kind of imagine this as like one macro game, is like if you're a competent player, you'll have more money because your score is going up. But the problem is what happens if one of the players, as I said, doesn't actually have to trade time, energy, or scarce resources or anything for points. They can just create points out of thin air. The game is fucking rigged. So if we think about why Bitcoin was invented, Bitcoin is a scoreboard. Bitcoin is a money. That means that nobody can rig the game, that nobody can issue themselves points. Because when you issue yourself points, not only do you give yourself an advantage, but because an economy is a closed loop, it's a closed system. When you issue yourself points, you actually diminish the points that everybody else has in relation to you. That's what inflation is. When they print money, the total pie in unit amounts gets larger, but the percentage changes. Do you understand what I mean? So
yeah,
let's say,
like
for example,
it's like an investor coming in and investing on the back end, or you could be diluted out. Yeah.
Exactly. So that is what's happening. Inflation is the dilution of your wealth. And what Bitcoin does is so this is the most important thing about Bitcoin. It's the fixed supply that nobody on the planet can change and nobody can readjust the distribution by decree. So fiat means decree, right? So when you look at all of the crypto stuff, the specific difference between crypto and Bitcoin is that in every single crypto other than Bitcoin, there is a decree that can change the scorecard in some way, shape, or form. Whether through new inflation, new issuance, a rug pull, whatever you want to call it, there is a method, there is a mechanism in crypto to do that. So what all the crypto guys have latched onto, and this is whether it's Ethereum, whether it's all of these guys, they fucking caught onto the idea that you can print your own money. It's the ultimate power, the ultimate money grab. And they all hate Bitcoin because of that. They all, at some point in time, have tried to change Bitcoin, do something. And that's why they all say, oh yeah, they poo-poo Bitcoin, because there are no gods in Bitcoin. There are no Federal Reserve. There is no central banking authority. There's nothing. Like Bitcoin is just, like Mark said, it's a commodity. It is Bitcoin like a law of physics. It's there and it makes the game fair. And on a fair standard, you actually get a world in which you're rewarded for playing well and you get feedback, i.e. pain for playing poorly. And that means you can readjust. But in the current game, the cronyist game that we're playing, the fiat game that we're playing, number one, you don't get rewarded if you're doing the right thing because you don't know what the fuck, like you need to cheat to win. And then you don't actually get good feedback when you do the wrong thing. So you don't know that you're doing the wrong thing. So you keep making mistakes. Like it's just complete distortion. So anyway, it's just a massive, massive point. Like crypto is not going to help anybody. Crypto is just going to perpetuate. Crypto is like the, if you're familiar with the Weimar Republic at the end of Germany's hyperinflation before the Nazis came in, right? Crypto is a late stage hyperinflation game, which is as the world's going mad and everyone's losing their mind and money is losing value, you get into a stage where everyone becomes a rampant consumer or a rampant gambler. And crypto just sits in the space of gambling. Everyone's a fucking gambler. Everyone's printing money out of thin air. Everyone's like making money out of nothing. Whereas Bitcoin is an attempt to rebalance the economic standard, put it on a fixed standard and emerge organically without someone controlling it, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the big idea. And that's what's important. So Bitcoin has the potential to clean up this mess. Crypto is just a way to take advantage of others during the mess. That's kind of the way to look at it.
I'm so glad you touched on that because a lot of people don't know that. The fact of the matter is that debt is irrelevant when you have the ability to hit print on a printing press and take paper and ink and create dollars, or create it out of thin air and just enter some zeros on a freaking keyboard, which is way easier than printing the shit. Most people don't know that that's happening. Like, debt is irrelevant if you're paying back your debt, like us, to the Federal Reserve or to our bondholders, you can just keep printing more to cover that debt obligation. So when you can keep doing that, you're kicking the can down the road. What I keep wondering is, why are people not waking up to the fact that it's a de facto piece of paper? I mean, Venezuela, there's so many other examples, Eastern Europe over the years. Why have people not decided to move away from the dollar when everyone's gravitating towards it or still using it?
Because it takes
What
time,
keeps
man.
it going?
Take time. So you got to remember, like, money is like, as much as I know some Bitcoiners don't like to hear this, but I'll say it anyway. It's like, money is a system of faith, right? And just the US as an institution still, despite all of the mistakes it's making, still has the greatest degree of faith in the deep cultural, archetypal subconscious of humanity. But as we know from history, and as we're seeing before our very eyes, that trust dwindles away. And that's essentially what is happening to the US at the moment. Now, does that mean people are going to go and trust another government issued money? Maybe in the short term, because we're still sort of in this transition phase where people, they're just Bitcoin, the foreign concept to them. Like, it's a real different paradigm. So they don't understand it yet. So like I wrote an article recently called the Three Generations Theory. And in that I posited the idea that for Bitcoin really to gain mass adoption, it's going to take a few generations to filter through, because that subconscious faith in money has to shift. And the beauty, though, and the difference between Bitcoin and the Federal Reserve is that, like, I can't audit the promise of Jay Powell or Christine Lagarde or whoever the TCP guy is or whoever Putin's guy is. I can't audit what they're saying about the money, how much they actually printed or how many dollars. Like, I can't audit any of that. I can't trust that either, because it's all like, even if they go and tell you tomorrow, oh yeah, we're backing our money with a commodity, with gold and everything. Well, no, you're not. You're actually backing it with your promise that there's this much commodity and gold behind it. Like, and we all know how, valuable a politician or a central banker's promise is, right? So the reality is, like, Bitcoin is actually verifiable. I can query the blockchain like right now, and it'll tell me there's this many coins. This is the block time. This is the block height. This is how many have been issued. This is how many, like, that's never going to change. So as we sort of shift, as the paradigm shifts, and as sort of our generation gets old and a new generation comes in, they're going to, like, imagine what a kid who was born in 2010, like, and they come of age in the 2030s, like, they were born in a time when, like, they weren't born before Bitcoin. Like, in their mind, like, they grew up with this Bitcoin thing. Like, to them, it's going to be normal, and like, they will view it completely differently. So, anyway, like, my whole point there is, like, the only reason the US is still, like, the dollar of choice is it's running on the fumes of the trust that it as an institution developed over the last couple 100 years. And, unfortunately for the US dollar, that time is coming to an end.
The other thing I would say is, just kind of echoing what he said, but it's just time. And, we have to understand that, it's a deep subject. You have to kind of go to the philosophy of what money is. And so, money just communicates value, but there's lots of different ways to communicate things. And so, I could say, hey, would you, we started from a barter system, and then this became a medium of exchange that sat in between that barter system. And so there's lots of things that I could put in that barter system. And so, would you trade me for my iPhone that I have right here? Would you accept some of my labor if I came and did this? There's lots of things there. And so it takes time for them to be universally accepted and grow. So money is emergent. The other thing is that, the dollar took over the reserve standard from the pound sterling 100 years ago, but the pound sterling is still the third most used currency in the world today. So it's not like these things just like disappear and go away. And when the dollar took over from the pound sterling, that was about a 40-year process. And at the time, eventually in 1944, the world sort of got together and under the Bretton Woods Agreement and declared from on high that the dollar would be the new currency. And there's just no one doing that today. The world's breaking apart, right? We're moving into a multipolar world. Now we see, all this trade starting to move into yuan denominated assets. We have obviously a big push to commodity money. The dollar's still there. The pound sterling's still there 100 years later. And now Bitcoin is rising. Bitcoin is already one of the top, I think, 5 currencies in the world. And so it's all happening. It's sort of like watching a wall of paint dry. When is the paint going to dry? It's like, it is like, we're watching it dry. And so like all of this is happening. Bitcoin is rising. The dollar is dropping. Other currencies are still there. And I believe it just continues to get more fragmented and kind of goes back to the point where I think you first got us down this path, which is we have to protect ourselves somehow, right? And what about crypto? We do. And so as more and more people start to realize the pain, then that pain will lead to action. So like in Africa, for example, all Bitcoin transactions of all the transactions in Bitcoin under $1,000, 80% of those are being done in Africa. They have a very high pain. If you're in Lebanon, where you have to burn your bank down to get your money out of it, or Turkey, where they just saw 100% deflation, or Lebanon, any of these other countries, their pain is so high, they're moving faster than we are in the US. But we're literally witnessing it happening right now.
Yeah. That it's crazy that we are experiencing all of this because there's a convergence of a lot of different factors as well going in. I mean, look at geopolitics, look at what's happening with Russia, Ukraine, China, Taiwan. Money is a huge factor. The economy, the economic system, the bartering, the overall construct of money around the world is also being shaken up. Plus, we got generational shifts, right? You got these kids that don't want to work 9 to 5. They don't want to work 40 hours a week. They don't want to drive to the office. Everything is shifting. It's like a point in time where we will look back and realize, all right, this was a transformational period. And I wonder how we can get in front of that. How do we position ourselves? How do we position us individually to look out for that? What do we do? How do we benefit? How do we protect ourselves?
I think we've literally just been talking about that for the last 15 minutes.
But no, like individually, what can I do now? Like, there's a lot of people.
Let's play a game. So here's how you play a game, right? So what you do is you imagine a scenario that you need to protect yourself from. And when has a scenario like that happened in the past? And if I was back in that time period, what would I do? My friend Robert Barnes, he's a constitutional law attorney. He said, in regards to the big picture, he said, imagine you're a Jew in Germany in 1929. What would you do? Right? Well, you would probably package up all your belongings and you'd probably leave before the Germans threw you in a gas chamber. So like, what should we do? So in regards to our money failing, I guess is at the big question. What should we do?
All of it. I mean, money is a huge factor, but we did touch on like the fact that,
the freedom aspect,
you touched on freedom, you touched on sovereignty, gun rights, just the ability to live sovereign as a human being, regardless of government or geopolitical boundaries that dot the globe. How do we position ourselves in this transformational period individually?
So that's just a broad question that you kind of have to like dig into each one. There's like nuance there. But what I would say categorically, from a broad perspective is that because there's so many things going on and it's uncertain exactly how this plays out, optionality beats uncertainty. And so we need to have multiple options. I'm in California right now. There's a very good chance if the U.S. continues to decline, California will probably lead that decline. There's a probably good chance I can't stay in California. So what should I do? Well, I should probably prepare another place to go to if in case I need to leave California. Great. Well, where should I go? Well, I don't know. It depends on how bad things go. So I bought a 13-acre ranch in Texas and I have animals on it. I have cows and I have goats and things like that. So I have one plan to go to Texas, but what if Texas isn't a good place? What if all of the U.S. crumbles? Well, I also got a place in Mexico because I believe Mexico handled the whole COVID pandemic the best. So I got a place in Mexico. I think that'll be good too. Well, what if Mexico falls, right? And so how far can you play this out? And so we need to have the more options, the better. Obviously, money buys us options. So having money in a way that can't be stolen or inflated away. So then we have Bitcoin, you can use gold. There's other options for that as well. And so each one of these things has to have its like own set of plans. But ultimately, I think if we want to categorize it, it'd be like to maintain my sovereignty. How can I maintain my sovereignty? Well, I need to be healthy, right? I need health. I need wealth. Money is going to help me beat that uncertainty and give me optionality. And I need to be able to control as many things as I can, including my communication standards, and those types of things. So yeah, it's a really big question. We kind of have to dig into each one, but ultimately, hopefully that kind of answers it.
Yeah, no, it does. I think that's a good point. Now, and I think you did answer it. I mean, it's such a large topic. You do have to go into, we could probably do like 5 or 6 episodes and have those episodes focus on each of the factors that we need to consider in that type of a broad question. In a world full of what ifs, what if you put down your phone and you stop swiping? What if Talkify is the new way to meet your serious, totally perfect, ideal candidate for a long-term relationship? And what if they help you find that person? The Talkify matchmakers meet with you to learn about what you're looking for in a partner. Then they'll select and screen potential match candidates for you, doing background checks, video interviews, and asking the tough questions that are too awkward for the first date. Talkify is committed to finding your match. 80% of Match clients have met their person within the first 12 matches. And right now, Talkify is offering our listeners a 20% discount when you become a client of Talkify.com/successfactor, which is TAWKIFY.com/successfactor for a 20% off discount when you become a client. Talkify.com/successfactor. But switching gears a little bit here, what are you both up to now? Like, where are you putting your effort? What are you passionate about? And what are you striving towards? Let's start with you, Mark.
Yeah. So, I have been sort of on this path of, basically to your question, like sovereignty. How can I become more sovereign? And so how do I become more sovereign? I've thrown out a bunch of ways with my health, with my wealth, options for places to live. And so kind of securing all these different fronts that would lead towards this more sovereign picture. So that's kind of what I've been doing over the last, let's say, 3 years. I've really had sort of an about face in the last probably 6 months where, and I wouldn't say it's not a hard about face. I mean, about 3 years ago is really where I've sort of stepped up my rhetoric, really speaking out about this. I started holding my own live events. And part of it was just because, I saw the attack that was coming, with the likes of Klaus Schwab writing a book called The Great Reset. Harvard did a study, the Harvard MBA program did a study, and they found out that less than 3% of people in the Harvard MBA program had written down goals. But those 3% of people who had written down goals made 10 times more than the 97% of people who didn't. Well, you know who has written down goals? Klaus Schwab does. You know who else has written down goals? Bill Gates does. And guess what? I don't like those goals. Do you have written down goals? Do the people have and so that's what we're countering, right? And so I've decided, I really stepped up my rhetoric. I've been doing as much as I can, speaking out. What I like to have a picture on my wall over here from the founding father Samuel Adams said, "Doesn't take a majority to prevail, but a irate minority keen on setting brush fires in the minds of men." So I've been trying to wake people up, spread brush fires, etc. And then, of course, like I said, trying to take care of my own self first, put the mask on me before I take care of somebody else. But a lot of that is defensive, right? I'm good. Dude, I'll move to my friggin' ranch, dude. I got cows, I got guns, I got Bitcoin. Like, I'm good, man. Like, I can go ride this sucker out. I got a place in Mexico. I'll go disappear. I'll come back out of the hole in 5 years after the dust settles. But that's defensive. That ain't going to do any good for my kids and my grandkids. So I've decided I need to go on the offensive. So take care of yourself first. So I believe it's a spectrum. There's no finish line for that, but I've done pretty well taking care of myself first. And now it's time to go on the offensive. And so now what I'm really trying to do is take it to them and really try to push things on the what I believe is the most effective way that we can voice our opinions, not in the polls, which we should probably still do, even though it's not that effective, we should still do it, but through the economic means, through capitalism. That's how we change the world. Everyone sits back going, oh, Klaus Schwab's going to do a public-private partnership. The corporations are going to control us. What? That's because you're a damn socialist. You don't understand. Corporations don't control us. Corporations are owned by shareholders. You and I are shareholders. And what do the shareholders need? They need the company to grow. How does the company grow? Well, consumers. You and I are the consumers. We hold all the economic power. We hold all the power. The problem is entrepreneurs have been asleep at the wheel. The problem is entrepreneurs haven't stepped up to combat or to compete against these businesses that are using our dollars to work against us. And so I'm challenging entrepreneurs to step up, create these businesses, the parallel economy. We need to create businesses that stand for our values, that want to push our values forward. And then we as entrepreneurs need to step up and fill that void. And then even more important, us as consumers need to step up and support those businesses. And so that's kind of my big push. I'm really trying to turn the tables on that and trying to wake people up, educate, motivate, and inspire people to do that. I think that's the ultimate power shift and is right here in our hands. If we just turn off TikTok for a second and get motivated and go to work, we can change the world really quickly. So I've been defensive. I think I've set myself up pretty well, and now I think it's time to go on the offensive.
Aleks, what do you have to say to answer that question? And first of all, Mark, that was really good, and I love that. I love that you're doing that. I have a couple points I want to raise, but Aleks, I want to give you a minute to chime in on.
Do you want to rate your points first, and then I can add what I'm doing, because mine won't go away.
I do. So earlier we talked about how a lot of people are wanting socialism. They're wanting their paychecks covered, or their rent covered, the gap in their paycheck versus their expenses that they're feeling the squeeze of now. Look what's happening in France. People are wanting socialism. They want the government to help them. So in light of that trend, and we're seeing that in the US, our founding principles are starting to, go away. We're becoming more and more a socialist society. But why will people listen to the overall sovereign approach or the overall going back to the principle base in fighting against communism when they're actually wanting it? How do we win that?
Yeah, I think it's actually somewhat rather simple. The reality is, this is just standard psychology, standard sales persuasion. You can't motivate anybody. What you can do is you can help them to understand what it is they want and how they can achieve it. What people want isn't to be taken care of, live in a friggin' cage and be spoon-fed milk every single day. That's not what people want. They think they want that. That's not what they want. What people want, most people, I believe, probably don't want to be told what to do. Most people would probably like to spend time with their family. Most people would probably like to have a little bit of money and time left over at the end of the day in order to go spend time with their loved ones and enjoy passions that they have. I think most people would like to be, like I said, left alone, not feeling a threat of an overbearing government trying to inject them with medicine they don't want and push them into things I think that's what most people would want. So I think the answer is, it all falls back down to education. Of course, in Karl Marx' 10 points of communism, one is that the government should control all education. So of course they can teach you what they think you should want and how to achieve it, which is why all these people in the protest think they want more socialism. So I think the answer is we need to show them what you really want, what you really stand for, and then the better way to get that. So it falls back into education, not motivation, but education, helping them realize what they want and the right way to get that.
Aleks, we've been talking a lot. Jump in, bud.
I don't know if I should echo anything that Mark said. So instead of wasting that time, I'll just say what I'm doing. So last year I spent my time a little bit disillusioned, with business and all that sort of stuff. And I, went on the defensive, to use Mark's framing. I spent some time writing and, I kind of almost convinced myself that I was just going to disappear off into like the mountains in South America and just like write. And, who cares about everyone? But I've had a recent reawakening, particularly with a lot of the AI stuff that's happening. And I thought, you know what? Not only is this sort of like a paradigm shifting moment, but it's a paradigm shifting moment that seems to be only being taken advantage of by the kind of groups or institutions that we've had a problem with. So to Mark's point, instead of sitting around and saying, oh yeah, well, ChatGPT is woke, it sucks. Like, let's build a set of models that aren't woke, that don't suck, because there's clearly a market for those. There's clearly an opportunity to build competing systems that, if we really look at this in a macro view, like take it out 5, 10, 15 years from now, what do we want? Do we want some imbalance where the World Economic Forum types and everyone who believes in that sort of ideology of the world have the most powerful tools available to them, and us people who are calling ourselves sovereign don't? Of course we don't want. We want to be able to compete with that. And instead of complaining, let's compete. And I think that's something I've had a bit of a reawakening. And sort of I've been, as I said at the beginning of the call, I've been an entrepreneur all my life. So, that itch is back for me. My mojo is back. So I'm building something that I think will become an invaluable tool for people in the coming years, hopefully. And something that they can use to, become either better people, to produce better goods, to do better things. And that's kind of, my project. So, it's in stealth at the moment. But yeah, just I guess what I can say is that it's in the AI space, and it's hopefully something that'll, help balance the scales a little bit in the long run.
Yeah, AI is not going away. That's definitely something that's going to keep growing. A lot of benefits there. It's going to disrupt the entire workforce in a lot of ways, and it's going to disrupt just the whole concept of labor. And it's exciting. It's scary at the same time. Change is always scary, but when you look back throughout history, if you embrace the change and you a lot of times are an early adopter, you're going to really come out ahead. And so I think now's the time to be an early adopter, and you're on it, because 10 years from now, you definitely will be hitting this on the front end.
Oh, totally.
Well, it's good.
Totally. I mean, I've not felt like this since I first found Bitcoin. And I would still argue that Bitcoin's still the most important thing in the world. That hasn't changed. I mean, if you think about what Bitcoin represents, it represents the other half of everything on the planet. So, every AI company at some point will be valued in Bitcoin terms. Every bottle of water, every shirt, every cap, every computer, everything around us is at some point going to be valued in terms of Bitcoin. And money doesn't go away, because as much as we'll have cool AI and, cool technology, like the limitations of the universe still exist. Time still moves forward and is uncertain. Energy and resources, no matter how good we get at producing energy, there's still going to be a cost to energy, and there is still limited resources. So at the end of the day, money's not going away, and like Bitcoin's going to be the way that we can actually price things and value things more accurately and minimize the wastage and minimize the shenanigans and the games that we are tempted to play when we can cheat and game the system. That's still fundamentally important. AI is an incredible innovation. It's going to keep getting better, and it's going to keep getting more interesting. My hope is that it keeps getting more fragmented, because what we don't want is, I don't believe AGI is anywhere around the corner, honestly. I think all of that stuff is overhyped. I think it's a bit naive to me. It's like, these atheists who, sort of don't believe in the concept of the spirit and don't understand how to quantify consciousness. They just think that somehow, consciousness is going to emerge from a machine. I think there's like a lot more complexity there. But, the reality, the fact is that the machine intelligence, for lack of a better term, is getting quite competent at doing a series of tasks, which will give output power to whoever is using it. So my hope is that we can fragment that power a little bit, so that there's there's broader opportunity. But once again, like you look back at what are the key levers that matter, and key levers like get your money straight. If you don't have Bitcoin, you're seriously doing something wrong, or you've not done the work. So go and do that. Think about then how to sort out your food, because I don't care how much you can use ChatGPT. If you can't eat, ChatGPT ain't going to make any food for you. So like, sort out these couple things. And then, while you're doing that, figure out how you can leverage these other tools, and seek out tools that, you think are going to be of benefit to you. So anyway, a bit of a tangent there, but I want to put a cap on that idea.
I love it. You're totally right. And yeah, that was funny. Chat GPT is not going to make you food. So we still have fundamental needs, and you have to get those covered for everyone, and everyone's going to have their Pavlov, hierarchy of need, whatever the hierarchy of need is from a psychology perspective. You have to meet all that. Gentlemen, this has been fun. I think you guys have great insight. You guys have good perspective. It's a powerful book. You guys are both doing great things. Mark, I like your passion about being offensive and helping people and going out there proactively and playing that role. Is sort of what I'm trying to do with the Success Factor, is put out positive content, put out hope, put out some insights from other successful people so that people can learn and grow and develop themselves, right? Not rely on other people, but hear directly from individuals like you both, who are getting out there and doing it, and you're putting forth the effort. And so thank you for coming on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. But thanks for having us on.
Absolutely. Thanks, Trent.
You're welcome. And so where can people get a hold of you, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, I'm everywhere. I try to be everywhere anyway. So you can just go to onemarkmoss.com and everything's linked there. Onemarkmoss.com. That's my handle on Instagram, Twitter, etc. Just onemarkmoss, and YouTube. So find me on YouTube. Find me on your favorite podcast player, Mark Moss Show. Or just go to onemarkmoss.com and everything's linked there.
Thank you, Aleks.
Cool. And mine's just svetsky.info. So if you type that in, it'll take you to like a little site with some links, and it'll link off to everything. I encourage people to pick up a copy of the Uncommunist Manifesto. Like it's a short, sharp read. It's one of those books that you want to gift to people. So, I always tell people to grab a little pack so you have it for, Christmas giveaways. But, that's on Amazon.com. So you just type in Uncommunist Manifesto. I think if you even type in Communist Manifesto, we might come up. I hope so, like just over the top of Marx and shit. But there's like, if you're having trouble finding it, just go to uncommunist.com and you'll be able to find it. And that's also another way to find links to Mark and myself, is if you go to uncommunist.com, there's a link off to both of us there. So yeah, that's, I'm most active on Twitter, and I used to run a Medium blog and a podcast, but, too busy with other things now. So I don't do those directly, but still some of my older stuff. So if anyone's interested in learning a little bit about Bitcoin and stuff, that stuff's all there.
Awesome. Thank you. I really appreciate your time, Mark. I appreciate your time, Aleks. I know you guys are super busy and it's very late where you are, Aleks. So thanks for sacrificing there. And Mark, you're in California and I'm in Arizona. It's not that big of a sacrifice, especially with the weather.
Easy for me.
Yeah. Anyways, gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.